Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Spring Book Club Picks. I'm Susan Maguire, Senior Editor, Collection Management and Library Outreach here at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by typing the URL on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Caption Settings. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates the standard of behavior, including engaging in any forms of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Melissa Croce, Senior Marketing Manager at Simon & Schuster, Miriam Tuliao, Senior Library Marketing Manager at Penguin Random House, Vita Engstrand, Director of Communications at Kensington Publishing, Matt Johnson, Associate Director of Indian Library Marketing at Kensington Publishing, and Sara Martínez, Manager of the Nathan Hale branch at the Tulsa City County Library. We will kick things off with Melissa Croce. Melissa is the Senior Marketing Manager for Adult Titles at Simon & Schuster. She's been with the company since 2020, and when she's not reading everything from romance novels to poetry to narrative nonfiction, she likes to root for her many favorite hockey teams, play D&D, and watch K-dramas. Thanks for being here, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me, everyone. Let's get started. Next. Did I Ever Tell You by Genevieve Kingston? I devoured this memoir in one sitting. It follows Genevieve, known as Gwen, who was just 11 years old when her mother passed away from a long illness, leaving behind a pre-planned chest filled with gifts and letters to celebrate the milestones of Gwen's life and each of her birthdays until the age of 30. When the memoir opens, just 3 packages remain: Gwen's engagement, marriage, and first baby. Tracing her coming of age, the book reveals itself to be a treasure hunt and a big, long, memory box, with each gift and letter unveiling more about her mother, her family, and ultimately herself. Next. Miss Morgan's Book Brigade by Janet Skesley and Charles. This is the latest from the author of the Paris Library. This is a new novel that I also found very difficult to put down. It's told in dual timelines, vacillating between 1918 and 1987, following 2 NYPL librarians, Jessie Kit Carson, who is a real person, and Wendy Peterson. In 1918, we're in the middle of World War I. Kit Carson takes a leave from the NYPL to work for the American Committee for Devastated France, which was founded by Anne Morgan. Women would come from, the US and Canada to help rebuild devastated French communities just miles from the front. In her role, Kit came to also work there, but primarily as a librarian. She did what no one in France had ever done before. She helped build children's librarians in particular. She would turn ambulances into bookmobiles, and she trained the first female French librarians herself. In 1987, fictional NYPL librarian and aspiring writer Wendy Peterson stumbles across a passing reference to Kit in the archives. She becomes consumed with wanting more, and the more she discovers, the more she realizes that she and Kit have a lot in common and that their paths will cross, across the decades. Next. Speaking of time, this is The Ministry of Time by Cooley Ann Bradley. I finished this book a couple of months ago and I'm still thinking about it. In the near future, a civil servant is offered a position with a recently established, extremely classified government ministry whose top secret project is gathering expats across time to see if time travel is feasible, both on the human body and the fabric of space-time itself. This unnamed government agent is tasked as working as a quote bridge, someone who live with, assists, and mentors expats. Her person that she's monitoring is known as 1847 or Commander Graham Gore, someone who did actually exist. As far as history is concerned, he died serving Sir John Franklin's doomed 1845 expedition to the Arctic. And so you can imagine it's an adjustment to live with an unmarried, very modern woman. Over the next year, the two unexpectedly fall in love, but also they are uncovering the true shape of the ministry's project and its sort of sinister implications. Now the bridge has to decide, kind of reckon with the consequences and figure out her own role in the creation of the future. Next. Long Island by Colm Toybean. Home is back, and this is a sequel to Brooklyn. Some of us may know it from the movie. This takes place 20 years after that book and those movies. It's the spring of 1976. Ailish, our protagonist, is still married to Italian-American Tony. They live on Long Island. She is the mom now of two teenagers. She's surrounded by her in-laws, and yet she still is extremely lonely. She has never fully assimilated into America, and she still misses Ireland, even though she hasn't been back in decades. When an Irishman, a stranger, comes to her door one afternoon, what he tells Ailish will rock her world and set in motion a stunning turn of events. But what they are, you will have to read to find out. Next. This is The Return of Ellie Black by Emiko Jean, who some of you might recognize. She has written YA books previously. This is a debut, adult debut that Stephen King called a page-turning suspense novel. Readers are following Detective Chelsea Calhoun, who, as you can imagine, has a grim line of work and not a lot of happy endings. However, there is one that comes up. Local teenager Ellie Black, who disappeared without a trace 2 years earlier, has been found alive in the woods of Washington State. But something isn't right with Ellie. She won't say where she's been, who she's been with, or who she's protecting. And it's up to Chelsea to find those answers before another girl is taken, one who might never return. Next. This is The Main Character by Jacqueline Goldis. This is for Agatha Christie fans. This is an homage to her. It follows Rory, who has an interesting job. She is a main character. She has been hired by a very famous mystery writer, Ginevra X, who has an unusual approach to crafting her best-selling thrillers. She hires real people, conducts extensive interviews with them, and then she fictionalizes them. Ginevra has rewarded Rory and has given her a beautiful vacation, a trip along Italy's Mediterranean coast on the famed newly renovated Orient Express. When Rory boards the train, though, she is stunned to discover she knows some of the passengers, her brother, her best friend, and even her ex-fiance. With each stop, however, it becomes clear that Ginevra has masterminded the ultimate real-life twisty plot. And as the lies pile up, both ones that Ginevra has spun and from Rory's travel companions, Rory begins to fear that her trip will end up like one of Ginevra's books, with a murder. In order to make it out alive, Rory must untangle the reasons why Ginevra wanted them all on board and to what end. Next. All right, the comps for this are so funny. This is swiped by Ellen Chilton. It is Bridget Jones meets the Scream movies. So if you liked those, you will like this. This is a darkly funny, twisted thriller following Gwen Turner, whose life is what she calls it, a bloody mess. So you know what you do when your life is a mess. You drink wine, you watch reality TV, and if you're single, you go on the dating apps to fill the void. So Gwen starts kind of serially dating the few bachelors in her small town, but when a string of murders occur, what they all have in common is that all of these men have been on dates with her. So Gwen is being framed, and the only way she can clear her name is to track down her former dates, the ones who are still alive, and unmask a killer before it's too late. Next. Something completely different. This is The Safe Keep by Yale Vanderwooden. It takes place in the 1960s in the rural Dutch countryside, which is finally recovering from World War II. Living alone in her late mother's country home, Isabel leads a very structured, sheltered life. But all that is upended when her brother brings home his new girlfriend, Eva, basically leaving her at Isabel's doorstep as a guest, like while he goes off on business or something. Eva is the antithesis of Isabel. She's very careless. She upsets all of her routine. Isabel is both infuriated and intrigued at this. And these conflicting feelings turn into obsession, turn into infatuation. But soon things around the house start to go missing, leading to a discovery that unravels all Isabel has ever known, and that nothing is ever really over, and nothing and no one is as they seem. Next. This is Triple Sec by TJ Alexander. As a bartender at a swanky NYC cocktail lounge, Mel has witnessed plenty of disastrous dates and is convinced love doesn't exist. That changes when Bebe walks into the bar, who's perfect and beautiful, except she's married. Mel is resigned to having unfulfilled feelings, but Bebe makes her a unique offer. She and her partner Kate have an open marriage, so she can still date Mel. What starts as a fun romp turns into a burgeoning relationship, and soon Mel is opening herself up and taking chances both in and out of the bedroom. In the chaotic world of all these new experiences, Mel realizes there might actually also be a spark between her and Cade. So as the three explore their connections in polyamory, Mel begins to think that love might be more expansive than she ever thought possible. Next. This is the Ballad of Jacot de la Haye by Bryony Cameron. In the tumultuous town of Yaquimo, Santo Domingo, Jacot is an unknown but up-and-coming shipwright. However, her life is upended and she's forced to flee, becoming a woman on the run with a motley crew of refugees, including a mysterious young woman named Teresa. These people become indentured servants to the infamous Black Hand, who I keep wanting to call Blackbeard. Regardless, he's a pirate, and as you can imagine, he's not very nice. In order to survive on the ship, Jacot has to band together with her motley crew, and she even finds love with Teresa despite their differences. When Black Hand hatches a dangerous scheme to steal a Portuguese shipment of jewels, Jacot must rely on her wits and her friends to survive. But there's a grander, darker scheme at play, and she must decide what price she's willing to pay to secure a better future for everyone. Next. This is Swift River by S.E. Chambers. It's the summer of 1987 in Swift River, which is a declining New England mill town. And Diamond Newberry is tired of standing out. She's tired of being poor. She's tired of being fat. And ever since her pop disappeared 7 years ago, she's tired of being the only Black person in Swift River. This summer, things are hopefully going to look up. She's learning how to drive, so she doesn't have to hitchhike everywhere. And her mom is determined to have her pop legally dead so they can collect his life insurance money, get their house back, and finally move on. But when Diamond receives a letter from a relative she's never met, key elements of Pop's life are uncovered, and she's introduced to a family she's never known. Sorry about the alarm if you hear it. But when she gets to know her Pop side of the family, how will she learn of the past change her future? Next. Middle Tide by Sarah Crouch. To put it mildly, failed writer Elijah is not doing great. He is out of money, motivation, and the prodigal son must return home to a small town of Point Orchards in shame rather than in triumph. He distracts himself by restoring the cabin on his property and rekindling his relationship with a long ago lost love, Nikita. However, things go from bad to worse when a beautiful doctor is found hanging from a tree on his property. The sheriff's initial investigation points to an obvious suicide, but upon closer inspection, there seems to be clues of foul play when he discovers that the circumstances of the beautiful doctor's death were ripped straight from the pages of Elijah's own novel. As the town turns against him, Elijah might fight for his innocence against an unexpected foe in this scintillating literary thriller. Next. The Lion Women of Tehran by Marjan Kamali. In 1950s Tehran, Ellie lives in grand comfort until the untimely death of her father, forcing she and her mother to move, basically downsize to a tiny home downtown. She's lonely, but she meets Homa, a kind, passionate girl with a brave spirit. The two girls play and share their ambitions for becoming lion women, but their happiness is disrupted when Ellie and her mom return to their previous wealthy life. But years later, however, Homa returns in Ellie's life, and what happens next will change the course of their lives forever. Next. Tell It to Me Singing by Tita Ramirez. Monica Campo is pregnant with her first child when, moments before being wheeled into emergency heart surgery, her mother confesses a long-held secret. Monica's father is not the man who raised her, exactly the thing you want to hear before intensive surgery. But when her mother wakes up and begins having delusional episodes, Monica doesn't know what to believe, whether confession was real or just a channeling of the telenovela her mother watches nightly. Now Monica must search for the truth, and doing so, she uncovers her family's revolutionary past in 1970s and 1980s Cuba. Next. My Mother Cursed My Name by Anameli Salgado Reyes. In life, Olvido constantly clashed with her carefree daughter, Angustias, who eventually left home as a pregnant teenager. 10 years later, Angustias' daughter, Felicitas, finally meets her estranged grandmother. But the problem is she meets her and Olvido is dead. Now, Olvido is convinced the only way that her spirit will cross over is if she resolves her unfinished business to make sure Angustias is in a better place, and Felicitas is the only person who can see or hear her. Angustias, however, doesn't know about any of this and is just determined to get out of her tiny Texas hometown as soon as possible, and is very confused when people are starting to set her up on dates, offer her jobs, all that sort of thing. So now the three women must somehow work in order to overcome generations worth of well-intentioned mistakes and trauma, and they must learn to listen and let go. Next. Five Star Stranger by Kat Tang. So this unnamed stranger is on a rental stranger app, basically where users can hire anyone that they need, a pretend fiance, a wingman, extra mourner, a funeral. The narrator must navigate New York City under the guise of characters he plays for his job, always maintaining professional distance. But when a nosy patron threatens to upend his long-term role as a father to a young girl, who obviously doesn't know that's not her dad, the stranger has to reckon with his attachment to his pretend daughter, her mother, and his own fraught past. Next. This is Hum by Helen Phillips, a National Book Award finalist. This is a speculative fiction in a sort of dystopian, utopian world, addled by climate change and populated by intelligent robots called hums. A human, May, loses her job to these hums. And in order to resolve her debt, she becomes a guinea pig in an experiment that alters her face so it can't be recognized by surveillance. With some of the extra money after debts have been paid, she arranges for her family to go to the botanical garden, a rare green refuge, and where they turn over all of their technology and cell phones and just try and bond as a family. However, this might be a mistake, as the botanical garden is not the bomb she hoped it would be, and instead it is far more sinister. Next. All right, this is my last title. This is The Palace of Eros by Cara de Robertis. This is for fans of Circe and Black Sun, a bold and subversive feminist queer retelling of the Greek myth of Psyche and Eros. As many of you may know, it follows it pretty closely in the regard. Psyche is revered and reviled. She is so beautiful, she threatens Aphrodite, and when they try and sacrifice her, Eros sweeps in and rescues her. They fall in love during the night, but Psyche can never see them during the day, so she has a lot of doubts. She breaks Eros's trust, and what happens next, what they must do, transforms the very heavens. Next. All right, that is everything from me. Please check out all of our many, many resources. You can find them all at simonschuster.net/library. Next. Thank you so much for having me, everyone.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And now we'll be joined by Miriam Tulio. Miriam is a senior library marketing manager at Penguin Random House, an adjunct library science instructor, and a New York Public Library veteran. Take it away, Miriam.
Thank you, Susan. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to start by sharing a few of the digital resources available on our website, penguinrandomhouselibrary.com. Next. For those of you who host and support on-site, off-site, and virtual book clubs, we do have book club brochures featuring suggested adult titles with discussion questions, as well as collections of recommended Spanish titles and books for teens. Next. Our debut fiction sampler is out, and we encourage you to check out excerpts of some exciting new voices for readers of every genre. Next. Our spring 2024 catalogs include selected titles for book clubbers, readers, and listeners. Next. And we hope that you'll join us for the Spring Book and Author Festival and the Library Journal Day of Dialogue, 2-day-long virtual celebrations of books, authors, and reading with library staff from across the country. Next. So this is Shelterwood by New York Times bestselling author Lisa Wingate, a richly evocative novel that explores themes of courage and survival. It tells the untold story of women pioneers who fought to protect children caught in the storm of land barons, hungry for power and oil. Inspired by true events, Shelterwood was sparked by an obscure 1909 newspaper mention of a woman who found, quote, 3 elf children living in a hollow tree, end quote, in Oklahoma. Wingate researched the history of the place where she grew up through interviews, court transcripts, newspapers, and more, discovering how Native children and orphans were commodified by guardians who abused government laws to profit from them. Lisa Scottolini praises Shelterwood, describing it as a seamlessly crafted tale of tragedy, resilience, and triumph, adding Lisa Wingate once again gives poignant voice to the lost children of American history. Next. Malas by Marcela Fuentes. Full of passion and revenge, this story follows one family living on the Texas-Mexico border and occurs that reverberates across generations. In 1951, a mysterious old woman confronts Pilar Aguirre in the small border town of La Cienega, Texas. The old woman is sure Pilar stole her husband, and in a heated outburst lays a curse on Pilar's family. More than 40 years later, Lulo Munoz is dodging chaos at every turn. Her troubled father, her secret life as a punk band singer, but most of all, her upcoming quinceañera. When her beloved grandmother passes away, Lulu finds herself drawn to the glamorous stranger who crashed the funeral and who lives shunned on the edge of town. Their unexpected kinship picks at Lulu's family's secrets. As the quinceañera looms, one woman must make peace with the past, and one girl pushes to embrace her future. This richly cinematic novel is a love letter to the Tejano community that sustains both of these women. This debut work is publishing in Spanish and English this June. Next. It's a Privilege Just to Be Here by Emma Sasaki. This is for book clubs seeking meaningful discussions of race, class, and privilege. The main character, Aki Hiyashi Brown, is proud to teach at Wesley Friends School in Washington, D.C. Not only is Wesley the premier academic destination for the children of the capital elite, but it's also all about diversity, achievement, and collegiality. As one of the few teachers of color on staff, Aki's image is plastered on every piece of marketing material the school puts out. But when someone graffitis Make Wesley White Again on campus, it exposes dangerous fault lines in the school community, ones Aki may have spent a lifetime learning to ignore. It's a Privilege to Be Here is written with a keen eye of a prep school insider, inspired by the author's time at Sidwell Friends, a prestigious DC area Quaker school that has educated the likes of Chelsea Clinton and Malia and Sasha Obama. Next. Service is the highly anticipated follow-up from the author of the acclaimed Irish bestseller Dinner Party. Tensions are at an all-time high in an upscale Dublin restaurant as its employees grapple with the fallout from the shocking scandal involving its head chef. The waitress, the chef, and the chef's wife may all lovingly describe the food, but they agree on little else as their three voices reveal a story of power, complicity, and the courage it takes to face the truth. Book clubs will appreciate Sarah Gilmartin's elegantly written, character-driven novel. Next, Taran Angelis by Porochista Kakpour is a tragicomic saga about high-functioning family dysfunction. Iranian-American multimillionaires Ali and Homa Milani have it all: a McMansion in Los Angeles' hills, a microwavable snack empire, and 4 spirited daughters. There's Violet, the big-hearted aspiring model, Roxana, the chaotic influencer, Mina, the chronically online overachiever, and the impressionable health fanatic Haley. On the verge of landing their own reality TV show, the Milanis realize their deepest secrets are about to be dragged out into the open before the cameras even roll. Next. This is Same as It Ever Was, a masterly paced family drama by the best-selling author of The Most Fun We Ever Had, Carol Lombardo. After a youth marked by upheaval and emotional turbulence, Julia Ames has found herself on the placid plateau of midlife. At age 57, she feels that she has a firm handle on things. She's unprepared, though, for what comes next, a surprise announcement from her straight arrow son, an impending separation from her spiky teenage daughter, and a seductive resurgence of the past, all of which threaten to draw Julia back into the patterns that had previously kept her on a razor's edge. Same as it ever was, traverses the rocky terrain of real life, exploring motherhood, friendship, and the nature of relationships. Next. Here we have The God of the Woods, a propulsive page turner by Liz Moore. And like Anne Patchett's The Dutch House, it centers characters partly defined by their inheritance of money, land, houses, secrets, and trauma. When a teenager vanishes from her Adirondack summer camp, two worlds collide. Early morning, August 1975, a camp counselor discovers an empty bunk. Its occupant, Barbara Van Laar, has gone missing. But Barbara isn't just any 13-year-old. She's the daughter of the family that owns the summer camp and employs most of the region's residents. Tracing down the layered secrets of the Van Laar family and the blue-collar community working in its shadow, Moore's multi-threaded story invites readers into a gripping dynasty of secrets and second chances. Next slide, please. And for romance book clubs, we highly recommend The Love of My Afterlife. Here, a recently deceased woman meets the one in the afterlife waiting room, scoring a second chance at life and love if she can find him on Earth before 10 days are up. New York Times bestselling author Carly Fortune praises this book, writing, Kirsty Greenwood's The Love of My Afterlife is an utterly charming rom-com that is as hilarious as it is poignant. Reading this book is like receiving a big hug from a dear friend. Next. Here we have Long Island Compromise, an exhilarating novel about one American family, the dark moment that shatters their suburban paradise, and the wild legacy of trauma and inheritance from the best-selling author of Fleischman is in Trouble. In 1980, a wealthy businessman named Carl Fletcher is kidnapped from his driveway in a cloistered town on Long Island, brutalized and held for ransom. He's returned to his wife and kids less than a week later, only slightly the worse. And the family begins the hard work of moving on with their lives, resuming their prized places in the saga of the American dream. Spanning the entirety of one family's history, Long Island Compromise confronts the mainstays of American Jewish life. From tradition, the pursuit of success, the terror of history, and the fear of the future, to unspoken love. Taffy Brodesser Akner's novel addresses timeless questions about family, wealth, and inherited trauma. Next. And finally, we have And So I Roar, a stunning, heart-wrenching new novel from Abby Dowry, the New York Times bestselling author of The Girl with the Louding Voice. When Tia accidentally overhears a whispered conversation between her mother, terminally ill and lying in the hospital bed in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, and her aunt, the repercussions will send her on a desperate quest to uncover a secret her mother has been hiding for nearly 2 decades. Back home in Lagos, a few days later, Adani, a plucky 14-year-old runaway, is lying awake in Tia's guest room. Having escaped from her rural village in a desperate bid to seek a better future, she's finally found refuge with Tia, who has helped her enroll in school. It's always been Adani's dream to get an education, and she's bursting with excitement. But suddenly there's a horrible knocking at the front gate. It's only the beginning of a harrowing ordeal that will see Tia forced to make a terrible choice between protecting Adunni or finally learning the truth behind the secret her mother has hidden from her. And Adunni will learn that her louding voice, as she calls it, is more important than ever, as she must advocate to save not only herself, but all the young women of her home village. Even though this book takes on some difficult themes, this is also a read that is infused with hope and optimism, and book clubs will find much to discuss here. Thank you all so very much. Next slide, please. For e-galleys and more information about the books that I've shared, please visit the URL on the page and reach out to us. We're grateful for your support of our authors and books and book clubs everywhere.
Thank you so much, Miriam. We will now hear from the Kensington Publishing team. Vida Engstrand is the Director of Communications at Kensington Publishing, where she has been since 2011. She oversees the marketing and publicity for Kensington's diverse list of titles and imprints, in addition to directly handling the campaigns for historical fiction and select key authors. She has been lucky to have launched the careers of numerous best-selling acclaimed authors, many of whom she continues to work with to this day, including Ellen Marie Wiseman, Donna Everhart, Charlie Donnelly, V.S. Alexander, Amanda Skenandor, and more. Matt Johnson, the Associate Director of Indian Library Marketing for Kensington, has worked in publishing since 2002 in indie bookstore sales and Indian library marketing. Welcome, Vida and Matt. The floor is yours.
Okay, Vida, do you want to start here? We're just introducing ourselves. Okay, let me begin then. You see our emails below. You are free to reach out to us at any points to request any books that you might have on our list. Next slide, please. So all of our authors are good for virtual and in-person events. They are all very like engaging and energetic, and they come across well either in person or on the screen. Reach out to Vida and I if you want to be whitelisted for digital ARCs, and email us if you like print ARCs. I wanted to point out as well, we have a library marketing newsletter called Branching Out, news and notes for libraries from Kensington Books. That's a monthly newsletter that I do sort of these sort of title e-blasts through as well, especially when we're getting to deadlines for library reads and things like that. Next slide, please. Okay, Becoming Ted. So Matt Cain, his first novel with us was The Secret Life of Albert Entwistle, which in 2022 was an Indie Next and Library Reads selection. Becoming Ted is a story of a 40-something-year-old man, Ted Ainsworth, whose life explodes when his husband of 20 years leaves him. To recover and to grow and change, he begins exploring dance and performing drag. This is a heartwarming story about renewal and how anyone of a certain age can embrace their true self, find love, and live their best life to the fullest. Like his previous book, it is also a celebration of human connection and community. It involves a touching father-son relationship, LGBTQ plus recognition and rights. The author Matt Cain, like Ted, is gay, and determining exactly what makes a family. Next, please. A Daughter of Fair Verona by Christina Dodd. This is frothy, escapist fiction for fans of romance novels that are tinged with a little bit of mystery. Set in Renaissance Italy, this features the eldest daughter of Romeo and Juliet, who survive the Shakespeare play. Their eldest daughter, Rosalind, finds it bitterly difficult to find romance when she's in the shadow of her parents' very famous romance. She is quick-witted and independent, entirely uninterested in marriage, so much so that she is better at setting up the men she is betrothed to with their future wives than in settling down herself. When the latest man she is told to marry ends up dead in a garden, though, two perfectly eligible suitors, one of whom might be an actual love at first sight, which she does not believe in, form a love triangle, she and those two men. And they try to help her solve the murder and provide her with much, much more.
I just have to jump in. I'm so sorry. This book, it's all about the voice. I mean, first of all, imagine Romeo and Juliet didn't end with them dying. It ended with them waking up, getting married, living happily ever after, and 20 years later, still being like disgustingly, revoltingly in love with all the PDA that involves. And the parents of this, like, just wonderfully wry, sarcastic, brilliant, independent daughter. I mean, it's written in the first person voice of Rosalie, and it is such a fun read. It's perfect for younger readers too. So this is like a PG-13 book. It's great for like mother-daughter book clubs, great for school libraries, high school reading, as well as adult readers who who like romance novels like Bridgerton, but also mysteries like Knives Out, or other spins on Shakespeare, such as Fair Rosalind that came out earlier this year. This is super fun.
Yeah,
sorry,
really,
Matt. I just had to jump in.
No.
Like,
I'm glad you said that. I mean, yeah, the voice really kind of takes the piss out of the whole like romance of Romeo and Juliet, and her attitude towards her parents is really very funny. Okay.
On the next slide, there's a sign up. If anyone would like to screen grab this, I guess, or we can share the link afterwards. We are sending out these great special influencer kits with some fun props that will help draw you into the story, as well as sticker sheets. So if you have book clubs, or if you would like stickers for your library, please either email us or go to that link and you can tell us how many you'd like through there. And we can go to the next slide. Oh, this one, An Epitaph for Jezebel. So some of you might remember Elle Devine as the award-winning acclaimed author of the YA series Drama High. It ran about 19 installments. 6 of them were YALSA quick picks. This is not like the Drama High books. This is her adult debut, and it's a mystery that is Nancy Drew meets P-Valley. It revolves around Kiki McCoy, who's a former erotic dancer turned Atlanta journalist who develops a side hustle as a private investigator for cold cases involving marginalized victims. So it's set in Atlanta and its outlying suburbs. It features a really diverse cast of reoccurring characters, including Honey Mama, who's the owner of the Honey Spot, the strip club where Kiki used to work, and is now investigating this new murder situation. I love Honey Mama. She's such a great character. It's also, I mean, so it's a mystery, it's fun, it's got a great voice, but it is also great for book clubs. I love the way Elle Devine really uses this to draw attention to the less dead, which is a term that was coined by Eric Hickey and is used within the true crime community to refer to murder victims who belong to marginalized groups of society, whether it's racial minorities, unhoused people, sex workers, addicts, and these are the people who rarely get justice. Their cases go unsolved because, law enforcement considers them expendable. I don't know, but so, I mean, it's a fun mystery, but it also raises a lot of really interesting questions that make it perfect for discussion through book clubs. I also like how it has a really unique strip club narrative. Usually, if you find a book that revolves around exotic dancers, that really focuses on the like salacious lifestyle, but this one highlights the strength and power of these women. It's a great read. Next slide, sorry.
The very long, very strange life of Isaac Dahl. This is a sweeping yet intimate portrayal of a man's life through 12 significant days that covers nearly 100 years. And each chapter is one of those 12 days. They occur roughly 8 years apart, and they blend historical fact and fiction and move him from 1926 in Utah to a dust storm in Oklahoma, a naval battle in World War II, a civil rights protest, a tornado, an earthquake, all of these
The AIDS pandemic in the 1980s, the height of it.
Yeah, and this is a story. It's a very rich story about life and mortality and what a man builds as his legacy. It touches on um, friendships, the relationships between siblings and twins, and queer visibility, as both the main character and Yates, the author, are gay. And Yates actually recently was selected to join the spring trade shows for two independent associations. He's going to be traveling to MIBA and MPIBA's trade shows next month, actually.
Really
Next
great
slide,
read.
please. The Secrets of Rosebriar Hall by Kelsey James. This is set in Gilded Age, New York, featuring a young wife who wakes up weeks after hosting a party at her Long Island mansion without any memory of how the party went, how it ended, or what happened in the intervening weeks since then. Her husband, who she newly married, is distant and aloof. Her house is empty, with the staff dramatically diminished. And apart from an old childhood friend who appears out of the blue, she does not feel safe trusting anybody about what she went through. And when she begins to find notes in her handwriting, she begins to understand that she's leaving herself clues to what transpired and sets out to solve the mystery. This is a Gothic homage to Gaslight that touches on topics of class and wealth, female independence, and the truth versus propaganda. Kelsey's debut novel with us, The Woman in the Castello, was an Indie Next and Library Reads pick, and we are pushing hard for her to receive those recognitions with this one.
You can
Next slide.
download that great, we have a great book club kit for her first novel, The Woman in the Castello. You can download it there, and we will have one for The Secrets of Rosebriar Hall in about a month. The next slide, sorry. Okay, Medicine Woman of Galveston. Amanda Skenendor is a registered nurse and has really kind of carved a space for herself writing these meticulously researched, transporting historical fiction novels that revolve around episodes in public health and medical history, something that she is obviously very qualified to write about as she brings her experiences as a healthcare worker to her writing. This one is so great. It revolves around a 20th century female doctor who, after an event that causes her to lose confidence in her ability to practice medicine, is left penniless, without work. She's a single mother, and in order to support her son, who has Down syndrome, which I think is so great, that I cannot find any historical novels that have characters with Down syndrome in them. Very rare. I think my computer just froze, but I'm going to keep going. But anyway, so she takes up with a traveling medicine show, joining a German giantess, a bow-legged musician, an indentured Native American poet, and a handsome tinker under the thumb of a menacing swindler as they make their way through America in 1900, ultimately landing, unfortunately, in Galveston just in time for the Galveston hurricane of 1900. Is my computer completely frozen? Can you
No,
hear
you're
me?
good. We can hear
Okay,
you.
great.
Yeah. Next slide, please. The Flower Sisters is set in 1978 in a small Missouri town, 50 years after a devastating tragedy at a dance hall killed dozens of local young people. This is set 50 years after, and it features a 15-year-old girl who's left in the small town to live with her irreverent grandmother. And she sort of maneuvers her way into an internship at a local paper where she's going through the archives and she begins investigating, much to the chagrin of everyone in this small town, what actually happens at this dance hall tragedy. So this is based on something that really happened and was really unsolved in Michelle, the author's hometown. This is her debut novel, and we're really excited. It has a really great voice. The young girl protagonist is just kind of a delight, like very plucky. Next, please.
So Follow the Stars Home by Dynamic Fail. This is a historical fiction, a biographical fiction. It's a captivating reimagining of Lydia Latrobe Roosevelt. She was an intrepid expeditionist who, along with
Hey,
her
Vida,
husband,
Vida, I'm sorry to
Yes.
interrupt. Can you turn off your video because your audio is cutting out?
turn off my video, sorry. Thank you, along with her husband, Nicholas Roosevelt, designed, and then 8 months pregnant and with a toddler in tow, braved violent earthquakes and treacherous waters on the first steamboat voyage to conquer the Mississippi River. So she basically opened the country for westward expansion, which, until Lydia and Nicholas Roosevelt proved that you could travel against the current on the Mississippi River. Nobody thought it was possible, and that seriously hindered America's ability to travel westward. She did all this 8 months pregnant with a toddler in tow during, well, the Great Comet of 1812 was burning overhead. And unfortunately for their trip, right in the midst of the New Madrid earthquakes, which were very, very violent, dangerous earthquakes. So this is a transporting, historically rich biographical novel. It's great for readers of Shanna Abbey, readers who enjoy books about hidden figures and women.
Okay, next slide. Vida, I'm going to take over The Last Witch. You were really cutting out there at the end. So The Last Witch in Edinburgh by Mariel Thompson is atmospheric and lush. It blends witchcraft, queer love, the setting in Edinburgh, and Scottish folklore for a propulsive and emotional story, exploring what it means to resist the patriarchy and finding your voice. This is for fans of the Once and Future Witches, Cunning Women, the Lighthouse Witches. You see that at the bottom. I also realize that we're probably pushing up at the end of the time, so I'm going to move quickly to the next slide, please. Oh, The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. Monica Kim, this is her debut novel. She is a Korean-American author. And the best part about this slide is the quote that says, "Part fever dream, part downward spiral." This is about a college student whose family has been sort of ripped apart by bad decisions, let's say, having these terrible dreams of eyeballs in rooms, and then bodies start piling up on our campus. And it's completely about like this young woman unraveling. It is a psychological horror novel of the highest caliber by a really brilliant new writer. Next slide, please.
I hope my sound might be a little better now. I'm not sure.
It's okay.
Okay, you go with American Fly Girl.
Okay. All right, sorry. American Fly Girl. This is the last title we'll present. This is about not only the first Asian American woman who flew for the U.S. military, the U.S. Air Force. It is about the first Asian American woman who got a pilot's license. This is hidden history from an author, Susan Tate Hankney, whose father was a B-17 bombardier in World War II, and who herself is part of the Oregon 8th Air Force Historical Society. She is committed to detailed research on and investigation into World War II aviation and the empowering stories of under-recognized heroes all the time. Next slide.
Our next slide, we just wanted to bring some attention to our upcoming Defina nonfiction titles, Being Black in America's Schools by Brian Rashad Fuller. We have a memoir, Playing Ball by Vernon Davis, with introduction by his former coach, Mike Singletary. And then we have an amazing memoir, I Will Scream to the World by Jaha Marie Duguay, who is an activist who it's just extraordinary. She went from being a young Gambian woman who was a survivor of FGM, female genital mutilation, and forced child marriage, to becoming a global activist and political leader. She's UN Women's First Goodwill Ambassador. She was one of Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People. She's one of the youngest people nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is a really just a beautifully written memoir. The next page, the next slide after this, we won't even talk about any specifics. These are some of our other nonfiction titles that are coming up for any nonfiction book clubs you have. Please note, Dean Butler from Prairie Man, those of you who are Little House on the Prairie fans will want to check this out. He played Almanzo Wilder in Little House on the Prairie, and this is his story of being on the show and beyond. And then we have a slide on the next slide, our thriller picks for book clubs. We publish lots of thrillers. These are the ones that we think your book clubs will be most interested in. And the slide after this, sorry, we're just so against time here. These are our picks for mystery. So historical mystery, contemporary mystery, cozy mystery, new and forthcoming. This is what we suggest focusing on. If you have any book clubs asking for mystery recs. And if you are a mystery fan, or if you work with or have any mystery fan patrons, on our next slide, we give you a little information on our infamous Kensington Cozies booklet. We make one of these every year. You can download it digitally at the QR code or at the link, or you can reach out to Larissa Ackerman and tell her how many you'd like of the print copies, and we'll send you a big stack to pass out. This has everything you need to know about cozy mysteries, Kensington's cozy mystery programs, everything from lists of cozies based on the themes and lists of cozies based on where they're set or where the authors live. It's a really great resource. And I think that brings us to the very end. We just wanted to let you know these are some of our extended, super rich, lots of fun content book club picks that are available to download. We will have more of these that we will find a way to get out to all of you for the books that we just discussed. And thank you so much. I'm so sorry about the weird sound and tech issues. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Matt and Vita. Our final presentation will come from Sara Martínez. Sara was the founding coordinator for Tulsa City County Library's Hispanic Resource Center, where she hosted a myriad of Latinx writers from Gustavo Orellano to Lulu Delacre. Recent projects include serving on the American Library Association's Carnegie Award 2021 Selection Committee and on the We Need Diverse Books Walter Award Selection Committee, which she currently co-chairs. Sara writes reviews for Booklist and is a member of that board. For Reforma, Sara served as Spanish book review editor for the newsletter, chairs the Corazón de la Nación chapter, and the Organizational Development and New Chapters Committee. She edited the genre guide Latino Literature, a guide to reading and interests, and wrote The Chicano Movement, Historical Explorations of Literature. After receiving her BA in Comparative Literature from the University of California at Berkeley, Sara moved to Mexico City to do graduate work in Latin American Studies and Literature at the Universidad Nacional Autónoma de Mexico. She received her master's degree in Library and Information Science from the University of Oklahoma. Take it away, Sara.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. Welcome to the segment about Construyendo con Booklist. We're going to talk a little bit about Spanish language collections and having ideas for book clubs in Español, in Spanish. So I'm really excited to share some of my experiences with you. I hope you find helpful. Next slide, please. Primero, you always have to do your homework first. As librarians, you all know this. So basically, who is in your neighborhood? Who are you serving? Who are your vecinos? Where are they from? In Tulsa, for example, most immigrants from Latin Spanish-speaking countries are from Mexico, but we have a very heterogeneous community. So they could be from, even though they're from Mexico, they might be urban dwellers from Mexico City or Guadalajara or Veracruz, or they might be people from small rural communities, which is a lot of immigrants are coming from places like Michoacan, Oaxaca, and they might be people who are dealing with trauma. They might be more, it has been more customary, traditional for Mexican immigrants to be economic immigrants. Now we're seeing a lot more people who are coming from traumatic situations and violence. So you want to keep these kinds of things in in mind as you get to know your neighbors. Again, there's a lot of immigrants coming from Central America, from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras especially. And these countries, again, there's a lot of trauma happening. And then there's a lot of culpability from the United States. So there's a lot of things to consider as you meet people, as you talk to your neighbors, as you plan your services for these communities. South America should be aware of the situation in Venezuela. A lot of people are immigrating from there. And in Tulsa, we have a large community from Peru, also Ecuador, so Brazil. So get to know your community is very important. It will give you a lot of insight into what kind of collection you will need. Also, of course, the Caribbean, Cuba, the Dominican Republic. Always keep in mind that like any community, Latinos, I say, are heterogeneos, muy heterogeneos. They run the spectrum, politically, generationally, socially, economically. So you don't want to make assumptions about who are your neighbors, who are your Latino community, where are they from, what is their situation. You really need to get out there and meet them where they're at. Next. Here's a few titles that will really give you some insight into today's Latino community throughout the United States. These are all nonfiction titles. Hector Tovar lives in California. He's Guatemalan American. This Our Migrant Souls is just a very thoughtful, beautifully written book about just what does it mean to be Latino. Like I said, we're very heterogeneous. We're not the same. So he really goes into looking at the kind of trajectory of the community. Then Carla Cornejo Villavicencio's wonderful, The Undocumented Americans, is a really excellent, beautifully written book about the undocumented community in the United States. Where are they coming from? What are they doing? How are they underappreciated? What kind of lives are our neighbors? How are they living? Finding Latinx by Paula Ramos. Now Carla Cornejo Villavicencio is Ecuadorian American. Paula is Mexican American. Her father is the wonderful, famous, handsome Jorge Ramos with Univision. And so she has a really deep knowledge of journalism, and she's taken that and went around the country and met and documented the different types of Latinos living throughout the country. And then Solito by Javier Zamora that came out last year. He is a poet, El Salvadoran American, and he immigrated. This tells his story of immigrating to the States on his own when he was 9 years old. And just that whole trajectory. And as a poet, it's going to be a beautifully written book. And it's very thought-provoking, but also heartrending and just a beautiful read. So anyone working with the Latinx Spanish-speaking community, highly recommend any and all of these books. Next, please. So some ideas for having a club de lectura, a Spanish book club. Just like any other book club, it runs the gamut. Kind of, what do you like to do? What kind of interest there would be in your community? A good solid place to start is with the classics. Always people are interested in rereading the classics, and from Latin America, you want to go with, for me, these are just some examples: Mariano Azuela, El Dos de Abajo, about the Mexican Revolution. Of course, Gabriel Garcia Marquez's Cien Años de Soledad, the magical realism classic. Rosario Castellanos is a Mexican women's author from like the 50s. Her Balún Canan is set in around Yucatan, And it's a beautiful and kind of indigenous coming of age story from that area. Sorry. And then of course, Jorge Luis Borges, Ficciones, anything by him is wonderful and has been impactful throughout the canon. Yes. Then you might look at lo nuevo, what's new, you know, just concentrate on some new things that are being written. There's Yuri Herrera from Mexico, Las señales que precederán el fin del mundo. There's a lot to talk about, a beautiful little novel. It's a quick read. Mariana Fernandez has gotten a lot of buzz for her Nuestra Parte de la Noche. There's a lot of horror that's being written right now by women from Latin America, interestingly enough. And then a couple of other titles, some more authors. Pilar Quintana from Colombia has some interesting books. Nona Fernandez, Argentina. Pedro Mayral, he writes some things that are kind of La Uruguaya, which is kind of about a slacker 30-year-old and his midlife crisis. It's a humorous book. Julian Herbert, Carlos Fonseca, Austral from Costa Rica. Wonderful literary, deep novels that give you a lot to just, you know, dig into and discuss. There's a thing going around called the South America Challenge, which you might try out, which would be reading one book from each country, kind of finding a book. I've been following Frog Book Nook, I think it is, and Spookish Mommy on Instagram, and they look more, they trend more towards the horror, if that's a thing. There's a lot of that being written, which is kind of comes from all the trauma that Latin America has been through over the last century. So they're really, they have lots of good lists on their books. And Frog Book Nook is the one that put out the South America Challenge this year. And it's a fun challenge. It's to go through and see if you can find a book from each country in Latin America, about 20 books. So that'll get you through a couple of years. I think I'm going to do that with my own Spanish book club. It seems like a fun idea. Or you could do your bingo, a bingo card with that, something like that. Okay, next slide, please. I just wanted to add this on for anybody who's working with the Latinx community, the Spanish-speaking community. There's some really nice free resources on uscis.gov. There's study guides, and these are things you can get for your library. They'll send them, and I know that a lot of libraries set up little citizenship kind of nooks, and they'll have these resources there for people to access. One of the things that immigrants are very concerned about are the 100 questions that they need to answer for the citizenship test. And so this site has the question study guides in all different kinds of languages, including Spanish. The Mexican consulate in your area will sometimes, they accept requests for their elementary school textbooks, and they will sometimes, if you ask, they'll send you a set for free. And these are Secretaría de Educación Pública, published by the Mexican government, that all the kids use in public schools throughout the country. And I think they're really nice to have. They're, paperback, and but families from Mexico will certainly appreciate having those. Next slide, please. So some other things, además, that you should consider as you serve this community is joining Reforma. Reforma.org is the ethnic caucus of ALA that works with libraries that serve Spanish-speaking and Latinx communities in the United States and around the world. So it's actually kind of an international organization. You can find really good resources on their website under, I think it's Reforma Gold. They have a 500 essential titles selection there, which a mi modo de ver, to me, trends a little academic, but and Spain centric, but it has some really solid recommendations for a core collection to get started with. And then I like to keep an eye on bookstores, the Spanish bookstores, like casadelibro.com, and it's from Spain, and it's a nice solid bookstore. Gandhi.com.mx in Mexico City is also a nice one to follow, and they'll have, you know, more updated trending books that are being novedades, new things that are coming out. I always recommend going to the Feria del Libro in Guadalajara if you're able. ALA does support, people can apply for the ALA Free Pass program, and you can go and you'll have help if you don't speak Spanish, help navigating the book fair. It's just a wonderful opportunity. And then many of our ebook platforms right now offer Spanish language materials like Hoopla. I think what we need to work on there is their promos, and you might need to, you know, modify them or make them work for you. Get out the word to your community that these are available. Materials are available through electronic platforms. And then, you know, your main resource is your staff. Do you have Spanish speaking staff that are working for you at any level? You know, and they will have great ideas on how to improve your services to this community. They're your number one entrada into your neighbors and your communities. So yeah, make sure you compensate them, and definitely rely on your staff. Next slide, please. Yeah, muchas gracias. I hope this has been helpful. I'm muy a la orden. This is my email. Feel free to reach out, and I look forward to hearing about your adventures in Español. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and a huge thank you to all of today's presenters. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, slide presentation, title list, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like the ones you see here. Mastering the art of reader's advisory involves ongoing study, both of major concepts that form the backbone of good RA practice and the skills that make your RA practice effective in the day-to-day. This series of Booklist workshops, taking place this Thursday, March 14th, is designed to keep you up to speed on both the ideas and practice that will enhance your RA game. Visit the Booklist website to register now so you can learn from the experts in the field about how genres relate to each other, how to talk to patrons about their leisure reading, and how to write an effective book annotation. Staff training, in-services, local conference, Booklist can help. You can now request free copies of Booklist and Booklist Reader for upcoming staff training programs so you can help the next generation of library workers become readers advisory and collection development superstars. Scan the QR code on the screen, visit our website, or email info@booklistonline.com for more details. Heading to PLA in Columbus? Then stop by Booklist booth number 1317. We'll have free copies of our magazines, including the Guide to Graphic Novels, book giveaways, tote bags, buttons, and a reader recommendation wheel. Plus, don't forget to attend our Book Buzz on Thursday, April 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern, featuring your favorite adult publishers buzzing about upcoming hits. See you there. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. A huge thank you to our panelists and to our sponsors, Simon & Schuster, Penguin Random House Library Marketing, and Kensington Publishing. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.